Welcome back to DZ Movies. Today I'm gonna show you a thriller drama movie called Knock Knock. Incoming spoilers. Watch out and take care. The action of the film begins with an ordinary family in an ordinary house, where in the first sequence of the film in which the two spouses have little intimacy, when they wake up they are quickly interrupted by their children, who enter over them in the room with gifts and a cake for their father. As the moment between the two passed, they gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. Mr. Weber seems to be left alone this weekend, as his wife and children will go to the beach. Meanwhile, Louis arrives at their house to bring a box to Weber's wife, and then he offers to transport a work of art. Soon, the family is on board and ready to leave, leaving Mr. Weber alone at home to continue his work. That night outside, a terrible rain and storm start, while Mr. Weber continues his work and listens to some music until he is interrupted by a knock on the door of his house. He opens the door and wakes up face to face with two wet young women, who were standing in the rain under the pretext that they were lost, asking him if he would allow them to use a phone or his computer for directions. Mr. Weber allows them to do so by inviting them into the house. He offers to bring them a phone and some towels to dry. One of them takes the phone and moves away from it, while the young blonde introduces herself to him as Belle. He extends his hand and answers with Evan, thus getting to know him. The young brunette claims that she contacted the friend they were supposed to reach, and explained that they were not where they should be and that they confused the addresses. Evan politely offers to call them an Uber, but they'll have to wait 45 minutes. The young women ask him to let them dry their clothes a little until the Uber arrives, and Evan agrees and leaves for some clean robes. 5 minutes before arrival, the young brunette Genesis asks Evan to go to the bathroom, leaving him alone with Belle. The two listen to some music, Belle getting closer and closer to Evan, dancing together, getting closer to him and his lips more and more until he is interrupted by the Uber that had arrived in front of the house. Evan goes after them to return their clothes, but he is surprised when the two young women were waiting for him naked, and ready to jump on him. Initially, Evan refuses to ask them to leave, but as the two almost dominate him, he leaves their prey, and the desire to have sex that his wife had refused him this morning, continuing to have a threesome all night long like he never dreamed. Evan's problem arises the next day when the girls did not want to leave, and when he threatens to call the police, the two accuse him of raping them and that they will tell the police when they arrive, and he will end up in prison. Evan becomes more and more desperate. He tries to bribe the two young women to leave his house, offering them whatever they want, but they refuse. The discussion is interrupted by Vivian's masseuse of Evan, who appears. He goes to the door, trying to get rid of Vivian, telling her that he feels better and that he doesn't need today's meeting, but he doesn't manage to convince her because Genesis is coming out from behind him. Only then does Vivian understand what happens and leaves, reproaching Evan for not doing what he did. In a fit of rage, Evan almost strangles Genesis, who continues to tease him after all that happened last night, but releases her in time. Then dial the police number without hesitation. Seeing this, Genesis stops him and asks him if he can drive them. Wanting to end this nightmare she is going through, Evan takes the two young women home by car. Evan returns home and begins to clean up after all the mess caused by the two and forget what happened. Tonight he continues his routine, working and listening to music until he hears a strange noise coming from the front door. Evan searches the house to determine the source of the noise but is hit in the back by Genesis and knocked unconscious. When he wakes up he is tied to the bed, and he sees the two girls in his house again. It seems that the nightmare did not end so easily in the end. Belle appears dressed in Evan's little girl's school uniform and climbs over it. The moment is interrupted by Karen, Evan's wife, calling him. The two are eager to meet her, ready to answer with the camera to see her husband ridden by the two young women when Evan promises them that he will do whatever they want, only not to answer the phone. Hearing what Belle wanted, he begins and rides Evan, having the sex he dreamed of with him again, while Genesis goes to get some food from the kitchen. Evan manages to free himself, pulls Belle away from him, then goes straight after Genesis, who is eating, who stabs him in the shoulder wound, knocking him down again. Evan finds himself tied to the chair again, this time in the middle of a psychotic game made with the rules of the two lunatics. The game is interrupted by Louis ringing the doorbell. The two try to fool Louis that Evan's nieces have come to visit and he is not home, but he is not fooled, and when he sees Karen's statue vandalized, he realizes that something is wrong and tries to call the police. But he doesn't get a call because he hears a noise from one of the rooms. He goes and finds Evan tied up, then he turns around and tries to stop the two of them from completely destroying the statue. Meanwhile, Louis stumbles and falls headlong into the corner of the statue, leaving him dead. The two make sure they stage the murder of Evan with a message, then continue their absurd game. Although seemingly innocent, Evan can't really get out of this situation. Genesis tells him that for what he did he will be rewarded with death. While the two are digging a hole in the back of the house, Evan tries to contact his wife, who was stopped in time by Genesis and ruined this attempt. The hours passed and the girls destroyed his house while they waited for dawn to end Evan's suffering. There were only 90 minutes left until Genesis found a gun. And this makes Belle untie Evan. The girls are in the mood for one last game. They make Evan hide somewhere in the house, and if they don't find him until dawn, they will leave and he will stay alive. After a diversion, Evan tries to leave the house and run away, but he stumbles and is caught again by Genesis pointing the gun at him. He tries his best to cry for help, but the young woman assures him that no one will hear him. It's morning, and the two tie Evan back together and push him into the pit behind the house, where they bury him alive, up to his head. They only leave his head out when they bury him. He begged once more for his life. Ready to kill him with a stone, Genesis hits right next to Evan's head, saying he won't kill him, everything was just a game. They do this with many married men, and no matter how much they love their families, they all say yes. For a moment they really thought he would be the first to refuse them. Before leaving him there and leaving, the young woman posts them on his Facebook account, a clip in which he had sex with Belle so that everyone could see his infidelity. The movie ends when his family returns home and sees the whole house turned upside down. Subscribe to this channel if you want more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to turn on notification to help this channel.